Previously on The Collected.
He looked at her. In his eyes something small, something still there. He looked at the river. He looked back. Behind them both, hell stood in the center of the bridge, and the cold radiated from her, and her shadow fell in 4 directions, and she was fully present in the way she had been in that ICU room, in that intersection, immense and patient and ancient, waiting for what would be. Danny got down. He half fell, his sneakers hitting the boards hard, and then he was standing on the bridge with his hands shaking and his face doing something he hadn't let it do in a long time. Sigrun put her hand on his shoulder, just once, just briefly. "Call Ruth," she said. He nodded, reached for his phone, hands shaking so badly he almost dropped it. Sigrun stepped back. She turned to Hel. They looked at each other across the length of the bridge, the cold between them, the river below.
Episode 8. The Cartographer's Last Map. Thomas Aldrich had been drawing maps his whole life. Not digital maps, real ones. Hand-drawn, ink on paper, the kind that took weeks and smelled like something purposeful. He had mapped coastlines, mountain ranges, streets of cities that no longer existed. He had mapped his wife's face once as a joke, and she cried and kept it in her bedside drawer for 30 years. He was 77, in his study, in the middle of a map. The question of which fact was more important, that he was dying or that the map was unfinished, had been the central argument of the last 6 hours. He had resolved it in the way he resolved most things. He kept working. The study was the best room in the house. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a drafting table by the window, reference maps pinned to every surface. His lamp threw a warm circle of light across the current project, the Scottish Highlands, commissioned, due in 3 weeks. He had been rugging on the western coastline when his hand stopped cooperating. He set down the pen, looked at his hand, picked the pen back up, and kept going. Hell came through the window. Not through the glass, through the dark behind the glass, stepping out of the night itself, and the study changed immediately. The lamplight contracted. The shadows on the bookshelves deepened and grew deliberate, rearranging themselves around her with quiet purpose. The temperature dropped in the specific way it dropped around Hell. Not mechanical cold, but something older, the cold of depth and distance. She moved along the bookshelves slowly, her eyes moving across the spines with something that wasn't reading so much as recognition. Sigrun came through the door. She looked at the maps on the walls with genuine attention, not the performed attention of someone being polite, but the focused inventory she brought to everything. She was building the record before she said a word. She said, "The Mongolia River." Thomas said. He was doing something precise and didn't look up. "I know that river. I'd imagine you know most of them." She moved behind him and looked at the map on the drafting table, at the coastline he was rendering with a patience and precision that had nothing to do with the commission and everything to do with who he was. "You've gotten the Knoydart peninsula wrong," she said. Thomas stopped. He looked at the map, made a profound irritation, reached for the correction pen. "How wrong?" 4 degrees. 4 degrees, he muttered. 17 years of Scottish coastlines. He kept working. "Pull up a chair if you're going to stand there criticizing."
Hell had found the map of Thomas's wife's face, framed, hanging between two bookshelves, slightly crooked. She stood in front of it, and the shadows gathered gently around her, and she was very still. "Eleanor," Thomas said, without looking up. "Drawn 1987. She said it was the strangest gift she'd ever received. She also said it was the only time someone had really looked at her." A pause. "I told her I'd been looking since 1974. "She's in my hall," Hell said. "She has been mapping it. She says the existing layouts are inadequate." Thomas made a sound that was grief and laughter simultaneously, inextricably tangled, the way they get after long enough. He set down the pen, looked at the Highlands, the corrected peninsula, the unfinished coast, everything still left to do. He picked up a broader pen, and in the bottom corner, in his careful architectural lettering, he wrote, "Completed by T. Aldrich. The western coast is as true as I could make it." He set the pen down, took off his glasses, and folded them and placed them parallel to the pen. "4 degrees," he said to Sigrun, almost fondly. "You corrected it," she said. "I always correct it." He looked up at her, clear eyes, tired eyes, completely unafraid. Hell came to stand beside the drafting table. The lamp threw its circle across the map, across Thomas's hands. He looked at the map one last time. Then he closed his eyes, and his hands went still, and the lamp burned on over the truest map of the Scottish Highlands that anyone would ever draw.
On the next episode of The Collected.
She was cold, she was tired, and the pines around her had been getting closer for the last half hour in a way that she knew was not possible and was happening anyway. She stopped at a small clearing and sat on a fallen log and made herself breathe. That was when she saw the woman. Hell stood at the far edge of the clearing. She was not doing anything, she was simply there, and her being there changed the clearing the way a stone changes the water around it, fundamentally, completely, the ripples going outward in every direction. The trees at the edge of the clearing leaned fractionally away from her. The last of the evening light, filtering gray through the canopy, pooled around her feet rather than falling on her. One side of her face was pale as stripped bark, the other was deep and dark and looked like something the forest had grown rather than someone who had walked into it.
Please like and subscribe.